What's going on YouTube? Welcome back to Show and Tech. So the iPhone 13 Pro Max dropped this fall with a price of $10.99 USD. And if you were anything like myself, when you first saw the iPhone 13 lineup and matched it up against the iPhone 12 lineup, which is right here, you probably thought to yourself that there really was no upgrade. There's no point in moving forward and giving Apple more of your money. I was in the exact same boat as you. They look the exact same. They feel the exact same. What's the point of upgrading? So last year, just to give you a little rundown, last year I had the iPhone 12 mini. I really liked it. I like the size, but the battery life was killing me. So I upgraded to the 12 Pro, which is this guy right here. And I loved it. I really enjoyed this phone. I've been using this phone 4 months and it has given me no issues at all. However, I still do have to walk around with a portable charger on a daily basis. Now, when I looked at the iPhone 13 lineup, really the only thing that intrigued me was, seeing that ProMotion, so the high refresh rate on the screen, but more so the battery life. So I took a leap of faith. I dropped the extra money in Canadian and grabbed myself an iPhone 13 Pro Max. And all I can say is, wow, ever since starting to use this guy, I have been hooked. Now, starting off with the obvious, this is a very large phone. So if you look at the Pro Max beside the 12 Pro, you can tell that there is a huge size difference. Okay, it's very readily apparent. Now, I have extremely large hands, so I wear XL gloves whenever I buy them. So this is the Pro Max right here, and this is how big my hand is. I was still apprehensive when I pulled this phone out of the box about the overall size of it because, again, I'm using a phone that is much smaller in the 12 Pro. So I was kind of curious, kind of apprehensive, thinking that maybe I wouldn't be able to reach the entire screen. Now, that being said, my best friend's wife, actually, she has very small hands and she just upgraded to the iPhone 13 Pro Max and she doesn't have any problems using it. I actually gave her a little rundown on how to use it because she was coming from like an iPhone 8 Plus or whatever and wasn't used to not having a home button. It's a different story for a different day. However, if that is your main concern, is the size of the phone, maybe you're a woman with small hands or a guy with small hands, whatever the case might be, and you're worried about how unwieldy this might be for you, just take Samantha into account. Hopefully she's watching because she has small hands and she has no problems with this phone. Now, like I said, I used the iPhone 13 Pro Max and I was wowed. I've been loving this phone ever since I took it out of the box and got used to it. And now I kind of almost feel like this screen is maybe too small. Like they need to do like a iPhone 13 Pro Max Plus or something for people with my hand size. But anyways, let's move on. So the iPhone 13 Pro Max features a 6.7-inch all screen. Well, technically all screen. There's a notch, as everybody knows and everyone hates. There's a notch, yes, so it's not fully all screen display, but they call it one anyways. And the display has ProMotion this year, which is what we were expecting to see last year. But again, that's a story for a different day, and we'll talk about ProMotion a little bit more in a second. It's got Apple's newest A15 Bionic chip, which is their fastest chip ever, as if we've not heard that every single year that an Apple phone drops. Yes, the A15 is the newest chip, and thus we would expect that it is the fastest one that they currently have. Now, it's also got a new camera bump on the back. You probably know this already because there's tons of iPhone 13 videos out there, but looking at the two camera bumps, this is the iPhone 12 Pro of last year, and this is the 13 Pro Max of this year. You can see that the camera bump is a little bit bigger. The lenses look a little bit different. This year, we've got still a wide lens, an ultra wide lens, and a telephoto lens all packed into the phone. So in talking about the build quality, when I hold these side by side, they're the exact same phone as we said, and we didn't really expect Apple to make any changes to the overall design of these, considering they just rebooted the design of the iPhones last year to give them this more boxy look, similar to my first iPhone way back in the day, which was the iPhone 4. So I'm very partial to this design. I love this design. I like the way the phone feels in my hand. It does feel very premium, as we like to say. So you've still got that textured glass on the back of the phone with the stainless steel rails all around the side. And then obviously the nice glass on the front too, which is very resistant to shattering. Now, what I don't like about the overall build of this phone is the stainless steel. And I know that it's very nitpicky, but the stainless steel, as you can imagine, picks up tons of fingerprints just like last year. I still wish that they would have textured it or something, just chosen a different material that doesn't hold fingerprints. Now, you're probably saying it doesn't matter because in 2021, most of us rock a case on our phones anyways. So this is true. Once you toss it in a case like this, the phone's very expensive. You're not going to want to rock it without a case. But once you have it in a case, you're not touching that stainless steel anyways. So it doesn't really matter. Overall, the build quality hasn't changed much. It's still very good. However, with those small changes, I think that it could have been a lot better. Now, moving on to the display, let's get one thing set for certain here. Obviously, when you buy this phone, it's because you like larger phones and you like that extra screen real estate for consumption of your media. Just got to put in my password real quick. So it's got a nice 6.7 inch OLED or OLED display, which looks amazing. As you can see with the colors on my current background, it looks very, very good. I have zero complaints overall about the display. It gets plenty bright so you can use it in direct sunlight. It's great to use at night with the brightness down. I've never had any issues with any movies or anime or anything like that has lots of color and dynamic range when I'm using this phone. Honestly, zero complaints about the display. Now, in talking about ProMotion, which I mentioned earlier, ProMotion is just Apple's named version of having a high refresh rate screen. And if you don't know what that means, all that means is rather than having a 60 hertz, so refreshing 60 times per second, it actually can refresh up to 120 times per second. And what that translates into is a much smoother viewing experience when you're using the phone. Now, this has the ability to automatically change anywhere between 10 hertz and 120, depending on what you're doing. So if you're playing a game or watching a movie, it might be a lower frame rate versus if you're scrolling something that's text heavy like Twitter, then you'll notice that the frame rate goes up. It's a much smoother scrolling experience and it's hard to show on camera. It's one of those things that you have to look at in person yourself. I would strongly suggest jumping into an Apple store and just looking at your current phone side by side with one of the 13 phones and understanding what that ProMotion is. Now, again, as a feature to warrant an upgrade, I would say it's not worth upgrading your phone if you're just looking for that higher refresh rate. Reason being, your eyes get used to it very, very quickly. So if I jump back to my iPhone 12 and I use that for about 2-3 minutes, I get used to that 60 hertz refresh rate and it doesn't bother me. It's not something that you think about. Now, when you're looking at them relative to each other or relative to other phones that don't have a higher refresh rate, then yes, it becomes very choppy. You can ask my friend Steven. We did a Twitter test while watching football at his house the other weekend, and he was blown away by how choppy his his Twitter feed looked when he was scrolling right next to my phone. However, again, once you've been using this phone for a while, you're not going to notice it. So it's not a feature that's worth spending all that extra money for, just that one simple thing. All right, so my biggest reason for upgrading to the 13 Pro Max, we all have that one friend who constantly walks around with a portable charger and they're constantly asking you, hey, can you charge this? Can you got some juice? Hey, what percent are you at? Can I use your charger, etc.? And I hated being that guy. With this, I don't have to charge my phone more than once every other day. I do charge it more than once every other day. And I have a video talking about how to keep your battery health at 100%. But if you wanted to charge this up to 100 every night or whenever you had to and drain it down to 0 before charging again, I almost guarantee that the average person isn't going to need to charge their phone again the same day. So you're easily going to get 2, maybe even 3 days of use on this phone. If you're someone that's not doing crazy intensive things like editing videos on LumaFusion or taking 4K 30 or 4K 60 FPS videos all the time, like it's very hard to kill this battery. Is it doable? Is it possible to kill this battery in a day? Absolutely. But as I said, unless you're spending your entire day on your phone, you're going to be very hard pressed to do it. So the battery life is my main feature on this phone that I would say is worth paying the extra money to upgrade. So it's $1099 for this phone in the US. In Canada, it comes to like $1,700 versus the iPhone 12 Pro, which I believe comes to like $1,375 or whatever, something like that. And the 13 Pro comes to like $1,600. It's worth paying that little bit of extra money and dealing with a little bit bigger of a phone to not be a slave to your portable charger and charging brick. Like it feels really, really good to be able to leave my house at 60%, knowing I'm not going to be home for 12 hours. And that after that 12 hours, I'm going to come home and still have juice in this battery. Like this has the longest 1% that I've ever seen. And, I didn't mean to spend so much time on the battery life of this phone, but really and truly, in my opinion, the battery is the single most important reason as to why you would want to spend that extra money, that hard-earned money to upgrade to this phone. Don't worry about the promotion. Nobody really cares. Don't worry about the extra cameras on the back. It's the same essentially as last year. But the battery life is definitely worth it. That being said, let's move on to the last part of the video, which is the cameras. So as you can imagine, if you've been an iPhone user for a while, the cameras are fantastic. They've been fantastic, I would argue, for years. When I put videos and photos of my 12 Pro next to the 13 Pro Max, I personally don't see much difference. I think that they both look very good, both for photos and for videos. This year, in order to sell these cameras, they talked about the cinematic mode, which all that really means is you're able to get that bokeh or the blurred background effect when you are shooting videos. Samsung phones have been doing that for years. Apple just started doing it now, and that's a big selling point for them. I can't think of very many scenarios where I would even need to use that cinematic mode, because like I'm not shooting movies and stuff on my phone. I'm taking pictures, I'm taking videos of, football games and friends at outings, etc. I'm not going to be flipping the focus back and forth and worrying about a blur. If you do though, if that's something that you're into, then sure, feel free. It's on the phone, it looks good. And it's really cool that you can do it even after recording. So you don't have to set up the perfect shot while recording and then do all the flipping back and forth of focus while you're recording. If you save the video, you can jump in, edit it, and be like, hey, I want to focus on that at this point. I want to focus on the foreground at this point. You can do that all after the fact or in post, as we say. But in general, the cameras are great. The speakers on this phone are very good as well. Plenty loud. Oftentimes with older phones like my Samsung Galaxy Note, I would connect it to a portable charger when I'm watching movies or a headset or whatever it might be. With this guy here, I just plop it on my stand, put the volume to max, and it easily fills this room that we're in right now with very loud but still very clear and crisp audio. The microphones as well on this are very good too when it comes to just shooting videos, whether you're using the selfie camera or the rear cameras. I honestly think that these are still the best in the business, bar none. So that's pretty much it. That's my take on the Apple iPhone 13 Pro Max. I really do love this phone. I've been a hater of the Pro Max phones for a while. I always thought that it was silly. Like there's no reason why you want a phone this big. It doesn't make any sense. I don't believe the battery life claims, even from last year and the 11 Pro Max. And now that I've finally used one myself, honestly, it's going to be hard to go back to my 12 Pro or down to the 13 Pro, for example, because you just get so spoiled with that battery life, and then everything else just becomes icing on top. So again, that's it for me. That's my take on the iPhone 13 Pro Max. If you've got any questions, concerns, comments, whatever have you, feel free to leave them down below. Much love as always, throwing up 2 of them, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.